everyone, I'm Shelley Till, and welcome to the Tri-State Report. This is a special program brought to you to discuss the impact and response of COVID-19 in the Dubuque area and beyond. I'm pleased to announce my guest today is Superintendent of Western Dubuque School District, Rick Colpitts. Welcome, Rick.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You bet. Are you adjusting well to this virtual world of instruction, I'm sure?
I actually am becoming an expert on multiple platforms of virtual meetings, believe it or not.
Very good. So let's get right into it, because this is a huge shift in education and how you deliver it. What has been the response and feedback you're getting from teachers and principals?
I think from the teachers and the principals, the response has been really outstanding. The fact is that we've gone a little slower than maybe some people as far as that, because we wanted to make sure our staff were taken care of first, because as they're trying to learn to do things remotely and virtually, we have 19 communities, and that means we have like 27 different internet providers and phone service companies and things like that. So actually working remotely as a teacher, you may have sketchy internet as well, but the response we've gone a little slower than some, as I said, and the intent of that is to make sure our staff are taking care of themselves and their family first, and now we're getting into it with the students with the virtual learning.
And Rick, how has that been going? Did you decide on the voluntary or the required education, and why did you choose what you did?
Sure. We decided on a voluntary, and there are really multiple reasons. The technology piece, which I just referred to, is one of those things, because for us to figure out how to get technology to everybody in a short term was really, really difficult and nearly impossible. But we're laying out plans to make sure that's available in the future should this happen again. The other piece for us is the equity access to education, because in the end, we have 467 kids that are on an IEP. We have another 150 to 200 kids who are second language learners. So those 600 kids have to have equal access to the education. So the technology plus equity were the two big factors in saying we're going to make this voluntary for everybody. And
how do you address those students, the equity issues and those with special needs?
Well, that's what we're digging into right now. The fact is that we have our special ed teachers and their rosters, looking at their roster to determine if we were to do distance learning. I don't want to call it virtual learning because some of it will be packet-based, but if we're going to do distance learning, what accommodations can we make for those students that have an IEP? What accommodations can we do for those second language learners? How do we make second language packets available? How do we allow our interpreters that work in our district to get access to those kids and work remotely with them? So those are the things that we're actually digging into now and studying. So in the end, our goal would be by the beginning of next school year, if we're in a situation like this again, for whatever reason, whether that's a blizzard that closes school for 10 days or if COVID-19 comes back, we're better prepared and able to actually distance learn.
And we're going to get into kind of what your plan is going forward, but I'm curious to know, you mentioned Western Dubuque is such a large geographical area and there's so many students, but there has to be a difference, or what is the difference in the way you're approaching this between your K through 8 students and your high school students?
Yeah, the K through 8 students for sure is more packet-based information. We don't have the online ability for those kids. And those kids, many of them, if you're a 5th or a 6th grade student, you could have both parents working, and teaching that student in a virtual atmosphere is pretty difficult because they may or may not have technology, but even if they do, having access and understanding what that teacher is doing is difficult without another adult to help and assist in that education process. So those things all factor in. I mean, our district is 555 square miles, so that's the largest district in the state of Iowa, and that presents lots of different roadblocks that smaller districts might not have. But we are working really hard to make sure that we're able to get over those hurdles. Again, should we ever come into this situation again?
Speaking of that, and the entire the return to learn plan, as it's called, what can you tell us about that and how you're addressing it?
Well, I can tell you that we're guessing at what's going to be in it, because right now the state is still working on what will be in that plan. It is due July 1st, so we do have some time to make that plan. But as we think about things, we're looking at, there are going to be some expectations. I'm speculating there'll be expectations about, okay, so how are you going to help kids catch up that missed 3 months of school? What are you going to do to accommodate them next year when you come back? Are you going to extend your school year? Are you going to start your school year with a block of time where you do nothing but catch kids up. I mean, those are all things that we expect we will have to answer. I think logically, there will probably be some sort of component that will require us to have a plan in place that says, if something happens again, you must have a plan to continue to teach your kids. It won't be an optional voluntary program next year. I'm guessing that they're going to have a requirement, a required component for that. So that's why we're laying the groundwork right now to make sure that by the end of this year, we're using that time with our students and our staff to prepare for what we think will probably be part of that return to learn plan.
So I want to shift gears and kind of, since you've been navigating through this for a while, do you have any positive stories you can share with us that you've heard back from families or teachers that are dealing with all of this?
Absolutely. How much time do we have? I mean, seriously, we have gotten so many positive responses from not just our staff, but from families who just genuinely appreciate the teachers reaching out to their kids. They genuinely appreciate the fact that we are not in a required learning environment because, again, as you have two parents who are both working and they've got elementary age kids, to add that to their component when they come home from work at 5 or 6 o'clock at night and say, and now you need to spend 3 hours with your kid to do this work. So those kinds of emails, but the staff certainly appreciates the fact that they have been able to stay with their family and take care of their needs and work with their kids, because actually the teachers were so sad last Friday when this announcement came down. I mean, there were a lot of tears shed. Even in my own household, my wife teaches elementary school in Dubuque, and she cried for a long time. She just misses the kids. So, but just some really heartwarming, positive things going on. The seniors at West Dubuque High School, the leadership group, wrote a letter to the teachers and the students about how happy they were to have had the experience, even though it got cut short, and how great the experience was to be a Bobcat and how much that meant. So there's just, again, I don't have enough time to speak about all the positive things that we've heard. And, you know, we have been doing a lot of training with our staff over the last 3 years about becoming more resilient, about becoming more positive, about finding the good in what seems to be an ugly opportunity. And I think that training is certainly paying off for our people right now.
Well, this is certainly the laboratory of life for that. And as a former Bobcat and a WD graduate myself, appreciate everything that you're doing. And thank you for being here and joining us today, Rick.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Joining me now is TJ Potts, Superintendent of East Dubuque Community Schools. Welcome, TJ.
Thanks for having me, Shelley. I appreciate it.
You bet. This is some interesting times that we're all living in and functioning in. And I know it's an exceptional challenge in the education world. And the state of Illinois has gone to virtual learning. What is the feedback that you're getting first from your teachers and other principals around your district?
The teachers were pretty overwhelmed to start with. They were doing what they've always done, but completely changed the manner in which they were doing it. So a lot of the teachers said that they felt like brand new students again, and they were spending a lot of time on lesson planning, not just necessarily the planning, but the delivery, since it changed so much. There was a lot of time and energy being put into that. But they were really grateful that they still had the ability to teach and to do education in some way, shape, or form, because that went away in a lot of places. So there was just, there was still that sense of hope and willingness because they were still being able to teach.
And TJ, can you summarize for us what the actual directive is from the governor of Illinois and how to finish out this school year?
So the directive given first was that students will not return physically to schools or campuses. So initially it was called e-learning, but the state found out that there was a lot of families throughout the state were part of the digital divide, so to speak, that they were having a lot of issues with connectivity or getting devices in kids' hands. Being part of a smaller school district, we were pretty lucky that we were able to supply devices to every family that needed them. And we were able to supply families with connectivity or help them find a way to get online so that we could continue with our education. But because of that divide throughout the state, the governor moved to remote learning, which included paper and pencil packets for some students. And a lot of school districts are doing that for a majority of their students. most districts are doing some type of packet work for younger students, kindergarten through second, third, fourth grade, and then online learning for older students. And that's the model that we've been following as well.
And I'm curious to know, how are you addressing students with different enrichment opportunities or students with special needs and accommodations for them?
That's definitely been a challenge. We had to get together as a team. We were fortunate that we had a day with students and staff prior to leaving. Once we found out that we were going to be out of school, we were still able to have one day with staff and students. We were able to set those things up, some of those opportunities, and we were able to communicate with families during that time about what that was going to look like. But it's definitely been a challenge for those enrichment opportunities. We've had students working with other students remotely and virtually for some of those enrichment opportunities, which has been pretty cool to see students work on the same project from different places. And on the special education side, it's really been a matter of the teachers and paraprofessionals being in constant communication with families. That's been, like I said, a huge challenge because their education does look different. So we've had to really adapt what we do. And unfortunately or fortunately, those families have really had to take, the primary role of educator in some of those cases.
Yeah, definitely a shift for everyone. What about in terms of community support programs? I know meals for students is a big issue in the state of Iowa. How are you addressing that in East Dubuque?
Yeah, so that was another mandate that, in the state of Illinois, the governor said there's really three priorities for education. Number one is the safety of students, obviously, and I think that's, everywhere. Number two was making sure that students are fed. So before we even talked about educating students, we talked about the safety and making sure that their basic needs were met. So that being a major priority of the state and of the governor, we made sure that we were having breakfast and lunch for every student that needed it. And when we started out in a district of just short of 700 students, we had about 30 students taking lunch. Now, a few weeks later, we're over 100 students that are being fed every day. So one of the things, again, as a small district that we were able to do with staff members now being, essentially out of work or not working, but still being paid, we do have staff members that are able to deliver meals to families that aren't able to come to school and pick them up. So we are supplying some meals to students, to families that come to our high school campus and pick them up, but most of our meals are actually being delivered right to the homes of our students.
That's wonderful. And what a way to keep everybody engaged and at least try to create some type of connection. TJ, thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us what is happening in the East Dubuque School District. And we wish you great health. And, we're all in this together, right?
Absolutely. Just want everyone to keep their head up, keep their chin up, and know that we're all going to come out of this stronger.
Thanks, TJ, for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You bet. Coming up, join me to talk about the personal finance impact that COVID-19 is presenting. We'll have Wealth Advisor Kelley Donovan. Welcome back. My guest is Kelley Donovan. She's a wealth advisor with LPL Financial. Kelley, thanks for joining me.
Good morning, Shelley. It's great to see you.
Wonderful to see you as well. These are trying times for a lot of people, especially financially. There's just so much uncertainty. One of the bright spots, if you will, is the stimulus checks that some people have received and may yet to receive. What can you tell us about those? Are we getting them? Is everyone going to get them? And what should we do with them?
Sure. Okay. So single people who make $75,000 or less and married people who are $150,000 or less should see a stimulus check. Many of them have arrived. They're either in your bank account or in the mail. Once the government sends out those checks, you will notice 2 weeks later, they will be sending you something by postal telling you that how much was sent to you, where it was sent, And if you have not received it, a phone number will be on there where you can contact the IRS to figure out what happened to that money. The big question is, I think, what should I do with my check? So we're going to talk first about the people who need the check, okay? And will there be more? So no one knows if there will be more, so you want to treat that money like it's all you're getting, which means be incredibly conservative and go straight to the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy, which speaks to food and shelter, okay? So I would think it would be wise to take your budget and list out what are your essential needs for you and your family, your kids, and start with that. Also, another point is, you can contact all of the resources, all of your, the companies that control your expenses. So call your car insurance company, see if you can get that reduced. Call your mortgage, see if they'll let you put it off a few months. Call your utilities. You can push your student loan off for 3 months without gathering any interest. The thing is, you need to call. You just can't stop paying and not contact them about that. And I highly encourage everyone to be super gracious about that phone call and kind, because the people you're calling are self-isolating like we are, okay? They're under stress as well. So, but that is one way to manage your budget. And then the third step is find those resources in the community. United Way, the food pantries, like, don't have too much pride. All of that is out there for you. The schools are serving. I know Project Rooted is giving free meals out at Convivium. Those are for whoever needs them. Some people have turned their little libraries into food, shelters instead. And so you can go get canned food there. Just do it. Next year, you might be the person helping me. You know what I mean? Like, but for the grace of God, go get those resources. I also want to note on that, even though this isn't a financial thing, there are also mental health resources out there. And I know that citywide, you can dial 211 and figure out what resources and what are available for your specific needs. So don't be shy. Go ahead and use those. That's what they're there for.
Stimulus check for people that might still be getting their paychecks, and they're like,
yes,
looking at this like, what should I do with this?
That's a great question. So there are a lot of smart moves that you can make right now if that money is not needed for your day-to-day life. So first of all, if you do not have an emergency fund set up, I highly encourage that everyone have, dry powder over on the side all the time for situations like this, because people are losing their jobs. They didn't cause that scenario, right? You want to have your emergency fund set up to cover 6 to 9 months worth of essential expenses. So if you've got that in place and you want to take advantage of the market opportunities, they're absolutely available to you. I would think that it would be very smart to set triggers for yourself. The market did a deep drop. I call that shock. The market came up a bit. I call that hope. The next step is reality. I mean, people aren't working, businesses aren't open, some will never open again. And I don't expect that we will recover without a bit of a drop again. So just watch for that, set your triggers. I know it doesn't sound sophisticated, but it's the only way to get the best prices without really knowing where the trough is, at the bottom of the market. Right now, the Dow's at 23.5. 2 months ago, we were at 29,000. 1 month ago, we were at 18,000. So it's a crazy time. No one knows what's happening. So if you set those triggers, when it finally gets back up to 30, you'll be really glad where you got in. And also, I'd be very careful about the sectors that you invest in. I think technology and healthcare are really good places to go with your money, as well as very strong companies that have very, I would say, conservative cash holdings. Those are the places you want to go with your money. You stay out of Europe. I probably wouldn't even invest globally right now. I personally wouldn't get into energy. There's a glut and you're not going to make a lot there, in my opinion, right now. But, Amazon's hitting record highs this week. So,
Kelley, what are some other things that you would recommend people can do to protect themselves in times like this?
Financially, I think it's really important that you have a financial advisor, honestly, Shelley. That person will be responsible for making sure that you're allocated appropriately during events like this. Okay. So here's what I would tell you is, that you're supposed to keep your hands off your face. Don't touch your face, right? Don't touch your money. Right? As long as you're allocated appropriately, your money will do what it's supposed to do. And if the market goes up what it's gone up historically, 9 to 10% a year, if it only goes up 7 in 10 years, today we're at Dow 23.5, we'll be in 10 years at Dow 48. Isn't that hard to imagine? And do you want to miss that, right? So just leave it be. If you're young enough, and when I say young enough, I mean under 50. If you're over 50, I would say contact your financial advisor this year, work through that. I mean, things are a little uncertain right now. You don't need to do it today, but you should be appropriately invested. You want to be looking at your asset allocation, your expectations for your budget in retirement. What will that look like, and where will your retirement income be coming from? And has any of that changed in the midst of this pandemic? And just be prepared that way. And if you do not have a financial advisor, don't be shy about getting one, because we know things you don't know. It's just like, people will come to me and say, I'm sorry, I don't understand this. I feel dumb. And I say, do you say that to your surgeon? Like, do you say that to your dentist? I'm sorry, I'm not, fixing my own filling. No, you can't know it all. And that's what we're here to do, is to help you. I do want to go back and touch on the stimulus checks and also the taxability there. So some people think that that's a loan. It is not a loan. Next year, when you do your taxes, you will be reporting the stimulus money on your taxes. However, it's given to you as a credit. It's called a recovery rebate. You will not be paying taxes. The only situation in which you have to be aware is if you actually go over the $75,000 this year of income, or as a married couple, if you go over 150, you may be required to pay back a part of that stimulus check. Okay. Wonderful. On the other hand, if you're getting unemployment, you will be paying taxes on all of your unemployment income. So just, some people have it withheld. Okay. Federal taxes are due. State of Iowa taxes will be due as well. You will not have to pay FICA, which is Medicare and Social Security, on that money, but it is fully reportable. So if you're not prepaying those taxes, you will have a tax bill on that next year.
Kelley, wonderful information. Thank you for sharing and putting shedding some light on all of this. We appreciate your time, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Shelley.
You bet. Coming up next, we're going to shift gears and focus on the effects in long-term care facilities. Welcome back. Joining me is Gretchen Brown, President and CEO of Stonehill. Gretchen, welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. Gretchen, for those who are unfamiliar with Stonehill, give us a quick overview and who do you serve?
Okay, very good. Well, Stonehill is a senior living community. We're one of few that are all on one location and serve the entire continuum of services from independent living, assisted living, post-acute care, hospice, long-term care, and palliative care. And we are actually one of the largest communities in the state of Iowa. So we serve 214 licensed skilled beds, and we have an additional 54 independent and assisted living apartments.
Well, that's a lot. That's a lot of people, a lot of residents, and a lot of lives that you get to impact. And Speaking of impact, long-term care facilities have been hardest hit by COVID-19. Give us an overview of how it's impacting you.
I think we have been very fortunate in the Dubuque community because we have had more time to prepare for this than other places such as New York and places that, of course, is very much covered on the media. When you think of the impact, though, obviously we have one of the highest risk populations. So just by virtue of serving seniors, since it affects more people over 60, our average age here is 84. So when you think about that impact on seniors indefinitely, just the way it can impact, even the flu impacts us. COVID-19, we're learning about this virus in real time. I have been absolutely so impressed with the level of coordination and collaboration between Mercy One, Unity Point, Grand River Center, Medical Associates, Stonehill, all the other senior living communities, public health, everybody. We're on calls just to say, boy, if this peaks and we hit a situation where hospitals are overflowing and, God willing, we won't, but we've prepared so well that if that happens, I want to tell the Dubuque community, you're in very good hands because every one of us, all the healthcare organizations are working so beautifully together. So I think what we're facing is obviously that the whole piece of a very, very contagious virus that is affecting many people with underlying conditions, particularly the elderly, and how you stay on top of that when you have that real time. But we are, the transparency and the frequency of communication has been just imperative for us. We have, just under 300 or just under 400 staff here, and I'm very, very pleased with just the response. I mean, we're here because we want to care for these seniors, and we are doing it in a way that has been, that to do compassionate services when you're very challenged. I got to take my mask and my goggles off to have this interview because I'm in my office isolated by myself. So I think I haven't seen my own face for a while. It's really quite interesting. But
speaking of isolation, I know that that's a huge thing for elders is isolation is not good for their health and mortality rates. There's studies that show that. How are you staying engaged with the residents, not only within your facility, but even with their families who are outside of?
First off, I will tell you, families, it kind of breaks your heart because families are coming up to windows, knocking to say hi to their loved ones on a cell phone, and they're looking through the window and having conversations. It's taken as long as some people bring their lawn chairs up and, have a little picnic outside the rooms. But what we're doing is, thank God for social technology, with between FaceTiming and getting on for Zoom meetings like this, having families just by phone calls and just getting on board with so many different ways. That's been amazing to continue to connect with them. Staff have been incredible, bringing in Easter baskets, and we have all sorts of activities to try to keep engaged. We have a live feed that myself and the administrator does Friday at noon, and we get on and so they can see us in their televisions in their rooms. So we're really grateful for that because we've been also able to tape spiritual things for the residents as well. So we're reaching out in many capacities. We partnered with some of the schools, which are closed, but the students, and they've been sending cards to residents too, and just really anything to just reach out and really let people know that they're really being thought about.
I'm glad that you brought that up. What can people in the community, even if they don't have a relative within a long-term facility, what can we do to help uplift at this time?
I'll tell you what, just being able to tell residents the number of people. First off, families, of course, are dropping off things. We've had to put extra tables out front just to get all the packages and all the stuff being sent in. But just the being able to hear about those that have donated the mask, have made the cloth mask, for making sure people have enough of that personal protective equipment. People, if they really want to help, our website with a / help 2020 has a lot of nice ideas, but any way to communicate to the residents and send in, mostly it's the physical notes, I guess. But I think just that cheerleading in the community, they hear the stuff that's not so positive out there too. So I think the more that people recognize, we are incredibly blessed to be here with them, and we're very blessed that they're here with us.
Wonderful. Gretchen, thank you so much for your time and for everything that you're doing, and be well and be safe. Thanks.
Thank you. Be well as well. Thank you so much for having us.
And now it's time to shift gears, and we are going to end things on a positive note. Joining me now on a positive note are registered nurses Lauren Rusch and Corissa Quednow. Welcome, ladies. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having us.
It's so good to see you without face masks on and your beautiful smiling faces. We appreciate you taking time on your very rare day off to be with us. Lauren, I'm going to start with you. What prompted you to go into New York City and help with COVID-19?
So I'm a traveling nurse, and I had just finished an assignment back in Colorado Springs. And it just felt like the right thing to do with everything going on in New York and my wedding being canceled and Corissa's too. We thought we might as well go out to New York and help. We had, obviously heard how bad it was in the news and the media, and knew that we could go out there and try to make a difference.
And you've just finished up your third week. Corissa, what has the experience been like? We hear a lot of horror stories, and all we see is what's on the media. What is the reality of the situation where you are?
I think that it's definitely as bad as the media is portraying it. There is a lot of patients, way more patients than any of us are used to taking care of, and they're way sicker than we're used to. And there's a lot of death, unfortunately. So it's good to know for the public that that is the reality of it, that it is causing a lot of people to be really sick.
What are you seeing in terms of uplifting good stories, that the response around you while you're there and really on the front lines of this?
It's really cool to see how the general public, even if we're walking somewhere to get lunch at the hospital, everybody is constantly saying, thank you so much. Anybody they see in scrubs, they're thanking. People are super appreciative. It's crazy. We've never had that kind of response to our career before. So that kind of feels cool. And then something cool that our hospital is doing as well, I'm not sure if all of them are doing it, but they actually announce over the loudspeaker with just a round of applause when somebody gets extubated, which means the breathing tube that they have gets taken out. So the whole hospital kind of freezes for a second, and staff are like applauding and cheering in the hallway. And it is not super frequent, but it's very like chilling to know that what we're doing is making a difference. Everyone gets so excited, and it makes you remember that your work is worth it. Definitely. Yeah. So it's cool.
Well, you are definitely heroes. It's like being in the front lines of a war, and you're it every single day. I have to ask, though, knowing the gravity of the situation and the not only that for the patients, but putting yourself at risk and in harm's way, why did you decide to run into the fire?
I think, kind of like I said before, we both had just finished. We're both traveling nurses normally. And we had just finished our contracts, and it just felt right to go out here and put ourselves in a position to help other people. And, I think we were both really nervous to do it, but at first we were. Our fiancés are both military. They understand. They're very supportive. They thought it was, cool that we would be able to speak about this in the future, that we were able to go through something like this or be a part of it. And then, there's so many nurses out there that can't quit their jobs to go help, or they're not they're not ICU nurses, and they're not as needed necessarily in a situation like this. So it was kind of they're unhealthy, and we're young and healthy, and we figure, we don't have a lot to lose. So might as well go out and help.
Well, it's pretty incredible. And I applaud you and commend you for everything you're doing. You guys have a YouTube channel too, that you're tracking and following what you're doing. Tell us about that.
We do. So we decided the first week, we just had so many thoughts and emotions with everything. And we thought might as well update our family and friends back home and just kind of let them know what we're going through. So we just started short clips of doing, updates on what we were feeling, experiencing, seeing, kind of answering questions for people. And we try to post them every couple of days. And it's on a nursing channel called COVID-19 Nursing. And it's made by both of us. So if you want to tune in and follow along, we'll be providing updates over the next couple of weeks while we're here.
Well, thank you, ladies, so much for taking time out of your day. Go enjoy your day off. And again, can't thank you enough for what you're doing. God bless you and stay well.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
That's it for another edition of the Tri-State Report. Thanks for joining me. Please remember to tune in every Friday evening at 6 p.m. and for re-airs on Saturday at 11 and Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Be well, everyone. We'll see you next time.